Let's start from the U.S. Senate, where Republicans and Democrats have clashed over witnesses and documents on the first day of the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump. Republicans blocked Democrats' move to subpoena White House officials to testify in the trial. The Senate rejected Democrats' attempts to secure new evidence. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has backed off on a plan to fast-track the hearings amidst pressure from fellow Republicans. Earlier at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump dismissed the accusations against him as a hoax and said the trial is a disgraceful witch hunt. Well, the U.S. says that China's secrecy around its growing nuclear stockpiles is a serious threat to strategic stability. The U.S. Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood said China's atomic stocks will double over the next decade. Wood urged Beijing to join trilateral nuclear arms talks with Washington and Moscow. He said the U.S. had discussed the potential talks in a security meeting with Russia last week. Wood said it is imperative for global security that the Chinese come to the negotiating table. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed Moscow would take part in the trilateral talks, but he said Russia would not force China to change its current position. Well, the Taliban say a comprehensive ceasefire will be declared in Afghanistan after the peace deal is signed with the U.S. Washington and the Taliban are currently holding a fresh round of talks in Qatar's capital, Doha. In an interview, the group's spokesperson, Sohail Shaheen, said negotiators are seeking to create a safe environment for the signing of the peace agreement. He said the Taliban will provide a safe passage to the U.S. and other foreign forces following the deal. Rejecting media reports, the spokesperson said it is the first time the two sides are negotiating the possibility of a complete ceasefire. Well, in Davos, U.S. President Donald Trump has said Washington may put tariffs on European cars if a trade deal is not struck with Brussels. After meeting with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Davos, Trump said he had very good talks. However, he kept the threat on the table. Trump's statement triggered strong reactions from European officials and companies. This comes after the U.S. president told reporters a deal had been reached with France to delay a digital services tax. Last week, a U.S. newspaper, The Washington Post, reported Trump allegedly threatened to slap tariffs on Germany, France, and Britain if they didn't formally accuse Iran of breaking the terms of the 2015 nuclear deal. President Donald Trump also says the United States can help resolve the Kashmir issue. Meeting Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump said the U.S. is closely following the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir.
Pakistan has been raising its voice for the people of occupied Kashmir who are living under curfew since August last year.
2,000 people coming.
The issue was raised once again by Prime Minister Imran Khan during his meeting with the US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the WEF.
We're doing more trade as it turns, and we're working together on some borders, and we're talking about Kashmir and the relation to what's going on with Pakistan and India. And if we can help, we certainly will be helping. We've been watching that and following it very, very closely. But it's an honor to be with my friend, and thank you very much.
Prime Minister Imran Khan said the US can help resolve disputes with India. He added the two countries are on the same page regarding Afghanistan.
The main issue, of course, is Afghanistan, because it concerns the US and Pakistan. And fortunately, we are on the same page. Both of us are interested in peace there and an orderly transition in Afghanistan with talks with Taliban and the government. And also, of course, India, it is a big issue. For us in Pakistan, it's a big issue. And of course, we always hope that the US would play its part in resolving it, because no other country can.
Prime Minister Imran Khan also held meetings with business leaders at Davos. He will address the forum later in the day.
Well, Prime Minister Imran Khan has discussed the worsening crisis in occupied Kashmir with the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. The two leaders met on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. During that meeting, Khan briefed Aliyev on the grave human rights violations committed by India in the occupied valley. Khan apprised him of the devastating impact of the Indian government's unilateral and illegal actions of August 5th. The Prime Minister lauded Azerbaijan's role on the Kashmir issue as a member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. He reiterated Pakistan's support to Azerbaijan on the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh. During their meeting, President Aliyev invited Prime Minister Khan to visit Azerbaijan. Well, also at the World Economic Forum in Davos, the Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg has strongly criticized leaders' promises for what she said were continuous empty words, while U.S. President Donald Trump urged the audience to reject climate prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse.
During her speech in Davos, the teen activist warned that net zero carbon emissions is not enough. Much more needs to be done. Thunberg said world leaders are running out of time to tackle the climate emergency. She added, nothing has been done to tackle the emergency crisis as the world is still on fire.
My generation will not give up without a fight. The facts are clear, but they are still too uncomfortable for you to address. You just leave it because you think it's too depressing and people will give up. But people will not give up. You are the ones who are giving up.
US President Donald Trump touted the success of the US economy in Davos. Trump largely shied away from environmental issues, which are the top priority of the agenda at the gathering. But he did say that the United States will join an initiative to plant 1 trillion trees. But the United States president spent several minutes of his speech hailing economic importance of the oil and gas industries.
Fear and doubt is not a good thought process, because this is a time for tremendous hope and joy and optimism and action. But to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse.
The World Economic Forum's annual summit at Davos runs from Tuesday to Friday this week.
Well, in its latest sanctions on Venezuela, the U.S. has blacklisted 15 aircraft operated by the state-owned oil company. The U.S. Treasury Department says the aircraft are used to transport members of the Venezuelan government. In a statement, the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said these aircraft flew in an unsafe manner in proximity to U.S. military aircraft in international airspace. Earlier, Pompeo had warned that Washington would take more action to support Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido. Israeli troops have shot dead 3 Palestinians near the Gaza border. According to reports, Gaza police say the civilians had no link to any militant group. However, the Israeli army said the men were suspected militants as they tried to enter Israel under the cover of stormy weather. It claimed the Palestinians threw an explosive towards them. The fatalities are the first in cross-border fighting since last November, when a 2-day surge in violence left 34 Palestinians dead. According to the UN, Israeli forces killed over 100 Palestinians in Gaza last year and 24 in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Now, Lebanon has formed a new government under Prime Minister Hassan Diab, ending months of deadlock and violent protests. The presidency announced the government after Hezbollah and its allies clinched a coalition deal on a cabinet. The new cabinet is made up of 20 ministers, mostly technocrats, with economist Ghazi Wazni as finance minister. Lebanon has been without an effective government since caretaker Prime Minister Saad Hariri resigned in October last year. President Michel Aoun nominated Diab as premier last month after efforts failed to strike a deal with Hariri. Prime Minister Diab said his government will immediately start working to recover from the economic crisis.
As for the economic situation, I repeat, it will be our priority from tomorrow in order to deal as soon as possible with all the issues related to the economy and the banking sector, the exchange rate, and all these issues. You need to give us some time. Achievement comes with wisdom and time. We will surely be fast but not hasty.
Crossing over live now to Davos and the World Economic Forum. Prime Minister Khan is speaking. Let's listen in.
Bankers Association, they sort of named it as the top destination. And we believe that in tourism, Pakistan can collect a lot of revenues, especially foreign exchange. When we assumed power, the biggest problem was our current account deficit. So the shortage of dollars meant that the currency was sliding. So the number one impact of tourism. Then the next thing was investment. We have a young population, need employment, and the only way we can give them employment is by bringing investment, local investment, start reindustrialization. In the 60s, Pakistan was one of the fastest growing countries in terms of industrialization. And we were the fastest in the subcontinent. We lost our way in the 70s because of an ill-conceived nationalization, which just stopped our industrial growth. And then this socialist mindset, which was anti-profit making. So we have reversed this. Now the government is actively incentivizing industries and investment. So we then try to remove all the hurdles in the way of investors. So the World Bank, its index for ease of doing business, Pakistan was one of the top countries. We climbed 28 places. Of course, a long way to go, but this is the direction the country is headed. Our investment in 1 year foreign investment jumped 200%. So, and the profitability, I think Unilever is here, their profitability went up. The other is other foreign investors have come back. Cargill, for instance, it had gone away, so that came back to Pakistan. So the whole idea is to now incentivize businesses, industry, remove hurdles in their way, change the mindset from the socialist mindset, which was envious of profit making, change it to the more people make profits, the more investors come to your country. And to ensure that we do not go back into the days of, when you have conflict. We have played our part in trying to avert the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which would be disastrous for Pakistan. So Pakistan played its part there. We are now working actively with the Americans for peace in Afghanistan. So there are good signs, there's a chance of ceasefire in Afghanistan. Very important for us because that opens up the economic corridor from Pakistan to Central Asia. The areas where we are hoping to attract investment, agriculture is one because we have fertile agricultural land, but unfortunately very low productivity because there have been no new techniques coming in. We don't utilize the water properly and so on. So we are trying to attract investors in agriculture. In minerals, Pakistan has probably one of the best gold and copper reserves, but still we haven't had mining companies coming to Pakistan for various reasons. So we are now giving them very good terms for the mining companies to come over. And and also the other area, we now a revolutionary first time in Pakistan is trying to go into a digital Pakistan. We have our young experts in that area, Tanya, who's come back from Singapore, and she's handling that. So we're inviting foreign companies, technical companies to come and invest in that. So basically, we are right now, first year was spent in stabilizing Pakistan also, because we inherited, as I said, this huge current account deficit. So the first year was really stabilizing our currency. We brought down our current account deficit by 75%. And now this year is the year where we want our economy to grow. And we need growth because obviously we want to provide employment. We have the second youngest population in the world, so we need to, the economy needs to grow. So we are doing everything possible to attract investment, make it easy for our local industry to invest, giving them incentives. And as I said, it's the first time since the 60s that a government is consciously now planning to help its industry grow.
Prime Minister, thanks for that and for really spelling out what you want to achieve. Can I just get a sense in the room of who would like to put a question to the PM? Please just pop a hand up if you'd like to ask something.
All right, so that's Prime Minister Imran Khan speaking there in Davos. He was speaking there at length about the many economic achievements of his own government, speaking also about how the environment now in Pakistan is that much more friendly to foreign investments. He did also mention there towards the end, just before we cut off, about the fact that local industries will also be, and local companies will also be more encouraged to invest and to work within the country. Also, he mentioned also the fact that Pakistan has a very young population, or majority young population, that requires employment, and that his government is working overtime to try and resolve the issue of unemployment at this time also. Now, Prime Minister Imran Khan did earlier also meet the U.S. President Donald Trump, as we told you about. He brought up a number of key issues with the U.S. President, such as the issue of Indian-occupied Kashmir as well as Afghanistan. We'll keep a close eye, of course, on Prime Minister Khan's activities there in Davos. Here at Indus News, I'll be back after a break with plenty more news. Stay tuned. Let's begin this segment of the Bulletin in the UK, where the House of Lords has approved Boris Johnson's Brexit bill, but not before making changes to the legislation. It voted in favour of 5 amendments over 2 days of debate, leading the new government to its first parliamentary defeat.
The upper chamber voted in favour of a move to protect the rights of European Union citizens in Britain after Brexit. The changes included backing the Dubs Amendment to protect the rights of refugee children. The PM office said they were disappointed by the move, but planned to overturn them when the bill returned to the Commons. The amendments are expected to be voted down by MPs, likely due to the Conservative strong majority in the House. This means the bill will bounce back between the two houses until both sides agree on the wording. The EU withdrawal bill ensures UK leaves the European Union on January 31st with a deal.
Now, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has approved the new government after the resignation of the previous cabinet. Putin named Mikhail Mishustin as his new prime minister and economy advisor Andrei Belousov as the first deputy prime minister. In a statement, the Kremlin said Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov have kept their posts besides a few others. Putin told the new government the most important tasks are to increase the welfare of society and to strengthen Russia's position in the world. The government of Dmitry Medvedev resigned last week, a few hours after the president announced a series of constitutional reforms. The United States has called for oil production in the country to resume. The U.S. Embassy to Libya said forces of rebel leader Khalifa Haftar shut down several major oil fields and pipelines. In a tweet, the embassy said the closure will worsen Libya's humanitarian emergency. It said the shutdown will bring more suffering onto the Libyan people. The embassy said oil operations should resume immediately. Libya's National Oil Corporation said the halt will cost the country an estimated $55 million a day. Oil prices dropped despite the loss of Libyan production. 36 people have been killed in a reported terrorist attack on 2 markets in San Matenga province of Burkina Faso. The government says 3 others were wounded after militants raided Nagraoga and Alamu villages. It said armed militants killed 32 civilians when they attacked and burned the market in Nagraogo village. Later, they killed 4 more people in Alamu village. Hundreds of people have fled the area and have taken refuge in the nearby city of Kaya. President Roch Marc Kabore has called for 2 days of national mourning. It is not yet clear who is responsible for the attack. Now, in Spain, the new government there has declared a climate emergency, proposing measures to tackle environmental change. The government pledged to unveil a draft bill on transitioning to renewable energy. Speaking after a cabinet meeting, Environment Minister Teresa Ribera said the bill will oblige all urban areas with a population of more than 50,000 to create low-emission zones. She said the measures will be sent to Parliament within the next 100 days. Ribera said the government will achieve climate neutrality by 2050. The UN's International Labour Organization has said nearly 500 million people worldwide are currently unemployed or underemployed. In a report, the UN warned that lack of access to decent jobs is contributing to social unrest. It said the number of people registered as unemployed is expected to rise to nearly 200 million in 2020, an increase from 188 million in 2019. The ILO chief said for millions of people, it is becoming increasingly difficult to build better lives through work. He warned that substantial work-related inequalities and exclusion were preventing many from finding decent jobs. On to Hong Kong now, where toy stores are stocking up on figurines of pro-democracy protesters. Some factories have refused to manufacture the politically charged toys, but they can still be seen in retail shelves across the island city.
The ongoing pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong are the biggest challenge to Beijing's rule in the city since 1997. The significance of these demonstrations is reflected in the city's toy stores, many of which have dioramas recreating clashes between protesters and police on display in their windows.
When we do it, we have to pay attention to details in the movement, including the origins of the yellow helmets, the gas masks and goggles.
Charlie, a pro-democracy toy maker, says he wants to make his toys as detailed as possible so people can empathize with the protesters. His figurines have scrapes on their legs from street skirmishes, and all of them have removable gas masks. Some even have a cling film draped on their arms, a method used by protesters to shield themselves from tear gas.
I've been inspired by Toy Story since I was small. I believe each toy has its own soul. So when I make figures, I try to make them breathe life.
Parts of these toys come from Charlie's own military toy collection, or he makes them himself using a 3D printer. This is because most manufacturers have refused to make politically sensitive toys, but this hasn't affected their popularity.
The manufacturers would usually say yes at the beginning, but when they actually have to make the parts, they will ask what you're making them for. They would impose self-censorship. Some factories don't want to be involved in politics.
The protest movement has died down in ferocity over the last month, but signs of political unrest, such as an anti-Beijing graffiti, are still all over the city. The popularity of these toys itself shows that the protest movement in Hong Kong is far from over.
Poland has emerged as Europe's largest bank for stem cells sent from across the continent. It's a billion-dollar global industry that can help to treat blood-related illnesses. Yet experts warn parents of raising too much hope, as many of them are saving bloods of their newborns as health insurance policies for their kids.
submerged in liquid nitrogen vapor at minus 175 degrees. Hundreds of thousands of stem cells from all over Europe bid their time in large steel barrels on the outskirts of Warsaw and Poland. The stored blood is drawn from the umbilical cord of a newborn baby. The 440,000 samples at Polish stem cell bank can be used to cure blood-related illnesses, genetic conditions, and immune system deficits.
If a patient needs a transplant and his or her own blood is stored here, it is immediately ready for use. It is not necessary to search for a suitable donor. Blood can safely be stored for 20 years.
The firm was founded in 2002 and is growing rapidly with millions of funds from outside investors. Various research is being done on treating nervous disorders using stem cells.
In the past, stem cells were only used to treat oncohematological diseases. Now they're also used for neurological and psychiatric diseases.
But critics warn against unrealistic expectations. They describe the promoters as sellers of hope that are impossible to realize in the near future.
A 17-year-old Indian girl has retained her crown as the teen with the world's longest hair. It has been more than a decade since she stopped getting her tresses cut following a bad experience at a salon.
Neelanshi Patel, from the small town of Mudasa in Gujarat state, remains a cut above the rest. She has broken her own Guinness World Record for the longest hair.
I set the Guinness Book of World Records in longest hair on teenagers in 2018. At that time, my hair length is 170.5 centimeter, and I again broke my own record and I set the record of hair length 190 centimeter.
She is nicknamed Rapunzel by her friends and schoolmates after the long flowing hair of the princess in the Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Her proud father said his only child's locks had turned her from a local celebrity into an international one.
My mom always helps me for growing me the hair, and she never feels difficulty about that. In fact, it's her dream that I can Guinness World Records title. And also my father always helps me and always supports me for growing me the hair.
Patel has to wear high-heeled shoes if she does not want her hair to touch the ground. Apart from that, the only time she has significant trouble is while swimming.
China's economic growth slowed to its weakest in nearly 30 years amid a trade war with the U.S. Chinese officials said more stimulus steps are expected this year to help avert a sharper slowdown. China's commissioner for the National Bureau of Statistics, Ning Zhizhe, said Beijing needed to properly implement proactive fiscal policies. Data released by Beijing showed slow growth, but the world's second largest economy ended the year on a firmer note. Fourth quarter gross domestic product rose 6% from a year earlier, steadying at the same pace as the third quarter, although it is still the weakest in nearly 3 decades. South Korea's annual economic growth for 2019 has hit the lowest level since the financial crisis in 2009. Seoul's central bank says the GDP expanded only 2% annually amid sagging exports and global trade tensions. The bank said net government contribution to growth came to 1.5%, the biggest portion since a decade. But it said the government stimulus helped the economy post its fastest fourth quarter growth in more than 2 years. Stock markets across Asia, meanwhile, are trading higher amid investors' buyback rally after yesterday's panic selling. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is trading over 1%, pairing yesterday's losses. Seoul's Kospi has gained nearly 1% after Bank of Korea said the country's economy posted the fastest fourth quarter growth since 2017. The Nikkei 225 is trading 0.75% higher. The Shanghai Composite has gained a fraction as market sentiments turned mildly negative following the spread of a SARS-like virus. And with that, you're all caught up. Thank you for watching this bulletin here on Indus News.